In the snowy wastes of western Ukraine, British-supplied anti-tank missiles being put through their paces. If Russia does launch an invasion of tanks, they can expect this kind of reception. But how soon that invasion could happen is reportedly now causing a rift between the US and Ukraine. While America says an imminent invasion's a real possibility, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky is insisting it isn't. There are those who suspect that you are talking down the threat of an imminent invasion just to preserve your economy. And actually, the Americans are right. It is a real possibility that that could happen imminently. Is that what's really going on here?
We do understand what's happening, and we're talking about this. We're talking about this with our people. But we have been in this situation for 8 years, so we shouldn't be only looking up. We're also looking on the ground. And for us, it's an important question. We may lose the current economy of our country. People come first.
In an hour of questions, the president was asked again and again about differences with America. President Zelensky has been walking a fine line between his government's position and America's assessment of the threat Russia currently poses. His officials, though, have been more blunt. One Ukrainian security official said today allies should supply weapons, but otherwise keep quiet. It's all welcome news to Vladimir Putin as the Russian leader keeps the world guessing about his intentions. His foreign minister was sounding diplomatic.
Our president already said that if our attempts to negotiate over suitable security guarantees in Europe does not give any result, then we will respond. Answering that direct question about what kind of response it could be, he said, any kind. My decision will be based on our military leaders' proposals.
But America's ambassador to Moscow wasn't convinced.
It's the equivalent of if you and I were having a discussion or a negotiation. If I put a gun on the table and say that I come in peace, that's threatening.
The daily feed of Russian propaganda goes on. While talking diplomacy, it seems Russia is still preparing its military for conflict.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky told President Joe Biden to calm down messages about the threat of a Russian invasion because it was causing panic. Biden and Zelensky spoke by telephone amid rising tensions between Russia, Ukraine, the US and NATO. Biden told Zelensky that a Russian invasion could occur in February, when the ground freezes, said Emily Horn, spokeswoman for the White House National Security Council. However, Zelensky told Biden by telephone that Ukraine did not agree with the U.S. assessment and that it was bringing panic that could later bring economic hardship to Ukraine. Zelensky also told Biden to calm down the messages. The official reading of Biden's call from the White House did not mention Zelensky's reported concern. Officials said the call did not go well. But the White House told the media that the characterization was false and some anonymous sources were leaking lies. Ukraine's military leaders, meanwhile, have downplayed the threat of invasion. Defense Minister Alexei Reznikov told Parliament, as of today, there is no reason to believe that Russia will invade Ukraine. Do not worry, sleep well, you do not need to have your bags packed. Similarly, Russia has criticized Western accusations and said that NATO is planning an attack or merely a cover for its planned provocations. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov again accused the US of fomenting tensions over Ukraine, a former Soviet state that has been in conflict with Russia for nearly 8 years. President Biden said he plans to send a small number of U.S. forces to Eastern Europe in the near future amid growing fears of a possible Russian invasion of Ukraine.
Amid all the mounting fears of an armed conflict, diplomatic avenues for de-escalation remain open, and France has initiated a fresh attempt to defuse the simmering tension. Diplomatic advisers from Russia, Ukraine, France and Germany, the so-called Normandy Four, will meet for talks in Paris tomorrow. French President Emmanuel Macron will host the talks. He has expressed deep concern about the situation at Russia's border with Ukraine and is pushing for a collective need for rapid de-escalation. Macron will also meet Russian President Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky tomorrow. A statement from the Elysee Palace said that President Macron remains determined to use all resources of diplomacy to preserve the stability of Europe and to show solidarity and readiness to support EU members. The Paris dialogue aims to push Moscow fully to implement the 2015 Minsk peace accords by withdrawing support for rebel groups fighting the Ukrainian government in the eastern Donbas region of Ukraine.
In another bid to defuse tensions, senior Russian and Ukrainian officials met in Paris along with French and German counterparts. The talks lasted 8 hours and all parties agreed to a ceasefire in eastern Ukraine. French officials said that some progress was made in the Normandy format talks. The meeting had focused not on the Russian military buildup, but on resolving the separatist fighting in eastern Ukraine since 2014. For the first time since 2019, Ukraine and Russia agreed to sign a joint statement, along with France and Germany, about the ongoing conflict between Ukrainian forces and separatists in eastern part of the country. The four nations have been working together, trying to foster a peace deal for eastern Ukraine since 2014 and are collectively known as the Normandy Group. Both Ukraine and Russian officials had an optimistic outlook after the talks. Both sides are set to meet once again in 2 weeks' time, this time in Berlin. But the Russian envoy made clear that for the moment a summit involving heads of state was not on the agenda. But the talks are a positive development after days of heightened tensions, where both NATO and US readied troops for military deployment. Several countries like the US, UK and Canada also encouraged their citizens to leave Ukraine, fearing an imminent invasion. But Ukraine's government has played down the danger, hoping to prevent panic among its own citizens. Ukraine says that while Russian troops posed a threat to Ukraine, the numbers deployed were insufficient for a full-scale offensive.
The number of Russian troops amassed along the border of Ukraine and in the occupied territories of Ukraine is large. It poses a threat to Ukraine, a direct threat to Ukraine. However, at the moment, as we speak, this number is insufficient for the full-scale offensive against Ukraine along.
That is an invasion. Invading Ukraine from a Russian perspective is going to be a painful, violent.
U.S. military assistance arriving in Kyiv over the weekend with more on the way. Diplomats' families from the U.S. and UK embassies are leaving Kyiv.
Ну, я думаю, такого не будет. Это глупости все.
Сплетни и все такое вот в кругах пожилых людей.
Кажется, это ложная информация, такого не будет.